Morning. We're going to chat this morning about Honda's Africa Twin, and in particular some performance mods that we have performed on our bike, which has really transferred or transformed, should I rather say, what is a bit of a Labrador of a motorcycle into a Labrador Pitbull cross. Honda's Africa Twin is a really superb bike, as anyone who owns one or has ridden one will be able to attest to, but when you start to push the limits you find it falls short in a couple of areas. Firstly, suspension. We find the standard suspension a bit too soft, and that's been addressed fantastically by Hilton Hayward with a revalving. A very inexpensive way of absolutely optimizing the excellent standard suspension of the Africa Twin. On the engine side, it's always a bit more difficult, and there we've gone the traditional route of a BMC air filter on the one hand, and on the exhaust side turning to Yoshimura's RS4 slip-on. Yoshimura has been around motorcycles forever and a day and is really one of the quality products when it comes to exhaust. Now, doing those two mods in isolation can often result in a drop of power rather than a gain in power, because ideally you need to sort out the fueling to optimize the better breathing capabilities of your motorcycle. The standard ECU is really not always up to the job to do that, especially with the Euro 4 compliant map that it is mapped by, which runs the bike very lean, and typically you find a loss of power low down and in the mid-range particularly. It probably won't rev out as it should either. So what we've done with the fueling is we've gone one better than simply looking at a fueling module, but we've looked at a piggyback ECU. In this case it's the DIM Sport unit brought in by Craig Langton at Fire It Up. Now, what this module does in particular is rewrite the mapping on the mid-range and the low range, where typically that is a closed loop, as they term it in fueling technology, and simply using a fueling module you cannot adequately raise the performance to the levels that the bike is capable of. What the DIM Sport unit does is it addresses that, what they call their rapid bike technology. And it has honestly transformed the Africa Twin into a formidable dirt weapon. You can really utilize that modified suspension, and the motor now has the bite that it honestly I felt lacked. It has the facility for various add-on features, one which we've added to our Africa Twin, which you would always wonder about on an adventure bike, is their quick shifter. Now, what we experienced riding in Peru on the new KTM was that the quick shifter was in fact a fantastic way of maintaining momentum and power. When you're on a steep uphill or whatever, you simply don't worry about the clutch and any kind of loss of drive. You hook the next gear and off you go. Now, this feature on the Africa Twin has the added benefit that the slightly notchy gearbox at times, it's a good gearbox by all means, and probably 10 years ago it would have been beyond criticism, but when compared with the absolute best today, it's not quite there. However, with a quick shifter fitted, it has a change action that is as slick as the best of them. An incredible benefit of the DIM Sport unit is that it can be adapted to any motorcycle. So when you buy one of these modified units, and let's be honest, whilst it's way less expensive than doing the old camshaft and piston thing in the old days, it still is a slightly costly exercise. The beauty of this unit is that it can simply be taken out, plugged into the next motorcycle you buy. It doesn't replace your standard ECU. Your bike will go back to its original factory settings, and you take your unit and you plug it into your new motorcycle, and it'll rewrite the parameters for that motorcycle. The other thing which is not always understood is the fact that we believe when you go down to the coast or you go up to Lesotho, where you have massive changes in altitude and therefore changes in oxygen levels, that your ECU would automatically adapt. Well, the fact of the matter is it does adapt, but ever so slightly. It just simply doesn't have the capacity, having only one sensor, to adapt as it should. With this unit and the 4 sensors measuring engine function. It absolutely and totally adapts. We also, what I can also report is that there's been no negative effect on fuel consumption. In fact, I might even suggest it's a smidgen better than it's been. So really, all in all, there's no downside. If you're serious about your Africa Twin, you want the best out of it. And I say your Africa Twin because that's the bike we're testing here. But if you have this sort of gain on any other motorcycle that you ride, it's a no-brainer. This is really what you should all be doing. I can only strongly recommend that you visit Craig Langton at Fire It Up and chat to him about one of these Sport ECU units. It will honestly turn your Africa Twin into the bike you always really wanted it to be in every regard.